Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Colby DeRodeff, co-founder and CEO at Abstract Security. Colby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. Happy to be here today.
Yeah, great to have you here. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I guess, I started in cybersecurity about 25 years ago at a company called Arcsight, which was in the security information and event management space, or SIM space, as most folks call it. Kind of got into cybersecurity by, I guess I like to say, dumb luck. I was working at a startup in San Francisco during the dot-com era, and it definitely was one of the dot bombs and, crashed and burned. And, so I got called into this company, Arcsight, through a friend of a friend and, didn't know much about cybersecurity. And I thought what they were doing sounded really interesting. I said, sure, I'm in. Ended up spending the next 12 years of my life working there at Arcsight in a number of different kind of capacities, focused on our customers and how to bring the product to market and how to make our customers successful with that product. And, after that, kind of spent some time, I was working towards the tail end of Arcsight. I started building fraud detection content on top of the security platform that we had built because it was a generalized correlation engine. We could look at different kinds of data and started getting into like wire fraud and, some other things like that, which was, I found really interesting, and ended up leaving Arcsight eventually after they went public and were acquired by HP, and going to a company called Silvertail Systems, which was purely focused on fraud detection, primarily through like web channels, like online banking, which was also a lot of fun, kind of looking at like what users are doing in the web portals and how to detect anomalies there and things like that. After that, I co-founded a company called Stream, which was renamed to Anomaly later on with a friend of mine, and, really ran with that for about 8 years. The company's still operational, doing very well, and left to go take a CTO role at a company called Veridan. And Veridan was then pretty shortly thereafter, we got acquired by FireEye Mandiant, which was then acquired by Google. Spent a little bit of time at Google and left after about 4 months and started Abstract Security.
Wow. So yeah, long history in tech. And I was going to ask, so you said you were a CTO somewhere. So your background and training is more on the technical side versus obviously you worked on the business side, but more on the technical side.
It's kind of both. So I have a fairly technical background, but I also spend a lot of time out in the field with customers. So I've kind of done both sides of that. I think like at Arcsight, my job was much more technical. Silvertail was much more technical. At Anomaly, I actually ran sales and the whole go-to-market organization there. And then at Veridan, I went back to being technical as a CTO there. Where, I kind of spent a lot of time out with customers, even in that capacity, figuring out what we needed to do in order to make our customers successful there and how we're going to implement that. And then here at Abstract, it's a mix of everything, right? As CEO, it's kind of, I got to have a little bit of technical side to work with the product folks and have a little bit of the go-to-market side to work with our sales team. And so the things I'm learning more about are the finance side of the house and, areas like that. But I have some really good support that's helping me. And so, yeah, it's exciting.
That's great. Yeah, we love that history. Amazing experience. So, yeah, let's talk about Abstract Security. What products and or services does Abstract Security offer?
Yeah, so Abstract Security is in the obviously cybersecurity space. We're building kind of the future of security operations. And that really comes down to the platform that security operations teams rely on in order to monitor and manage the threat data that is, that they're being inundated with on a regular basis. So, you know, running security operations centers and, kind of looking for threats within that data, trying to find anomalies and instances of threat actors that have breached the organization.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I mean, thinking about that, so if I'm a company, if I'm a decent sized company and I've got all these, say, electronic presences or websites and portals and different things, it's just what I guess what we don't realize, say, as a CFO, just every day these sites or systems are being bombarded. It sounds like by hackers or someone trying to get into inside our organization.
Yeah, nonstop. I mean, it is constant. And, the threat doesn't sleep, right? Because, well, there's a lot of automated threats. There's time zone considerations. Not all the threats are sitting here in, Pacific Standard Time or Mountain Time, right? You got overseas threat actors and nation states, and it's even gotten more complex than, in the old days, right? You had kind of your corporate infrastructure, you had your data center, and you had your website, right? And those were kind of your keys there, right? Your key kind of critical infrastructure to the organization. And now with cloud, you're dispersed all over the place. And cloud infrastructure has a tendency to grow. Well, especially, I'm sure you see this from a cost perspective on the CFO side. You think you're spending, 100 grand a month on cloud infrastructure. Next thing you know, it's, 250. Next thing you're spending $1 million a month on cloud. And that's the way that it grows. And it also grows into what we call kind of shadow infrastructure, where you don't necessarily have a plan for how do you monitor, how do you control that, how do you install your security controls into that environment that maybe, a testing environment that got spun up because there was a fire and you needed to, not a literal fire, but, an engineering fire that needed some extra servers for a little while, and they spin them up and then nobody ever took those down. They've been sitting there for a year. And this stuff happens all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, kind of in a bad way, because just some of my sites, just basic sites like a blog site or whatever, that I have security systems in place, and you don't realize until you have those in place all the illicit attempts to log in to hack the site that are just like thousands of attempts just on a blog site.
Yep.
So for big organizations, I can't imagine just the depth that it goes to, and you don't realize, like the common person doesn't realize this until you see that in place, and it kind of blows your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just think of the traffic and the attacks that hit kind of our top four banks in the US. And right. I mean, it's all day long.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, really, really interesting. That's just fascinating to me. And in what year did you found your company?
So we founded it in 2023 in February on Valentine's Day. So I like to call it a sweetheart of a deal. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then do you have a headquarters location, or are you virtual?
We do have a kind of a center of gravity, I would say, in San Luis Obispo, California, so Central Coast. We have also a number of folks kind of in the Bay Area. And then we have another little center of gravity in Pittsburgh. And we're starting to have a little bit of a center of gravity in kind of the Northern Virginia area as well. So we're kind of a hub-based model, you could say, which I
Mhm.
think is maybe the way of the future. It's something that we're seriously looking at how we, keep the culture of the company and allow folks to live where they want to live and not have to come into an office on a regular basis. But how do we kind of keep the culture alive, right? And that's something that, is definitely top of mind for me as we continue to grow and build.
Yeah, interesting. The hub model reminds me of the airline days when I worked for some airlines. And what's your current team size?
We're about 23, 24 people at this point.
Okay. And I assume with cybersecurity, is that of the 23, is that heavy on the engineering side, the development side?
Yeah, definitely heavy on engineering. I would say a majority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
majority. And then, so founded in 2023 in February. And then anything you want to share around ARR revenue ranges?
No, not really.
Okay.
Uh, but we are, starting to get a lot of traction in
Okay.
the industry. And I mean, we are new, right? I mean, I'll just, that's obvious. We're a year and a quarter old. We're GAing our product in like 2 weeks. And we've had some great support from customers that have been kind of working with us since, the really early days when we were kind of back of the napkin type thing, a couple PowerPoint slides on what it was going to look like, and kind of working with us through that kind of design phase, as design partners, and, all the way through to kind of letting us, run the platform in their environments. And so, yeah, it's been quite an intense, year and a quarter kind of getting to where we are this quickly.
And so a little bit right over a year into your journey. So tell us a little bit about your go-to-market motion. You're GAing the product here shortly. So how are you finding, say, those design partners or those early adopters?
Yeah, most of that is quite honestly, it's through the network. I mean, we have, both myself and my founding team have extremely strong networks in cyber. And so, it's phone calls and text messages to folks that we've worked with for a long time that know and trust us. And, we're able to kind of say, hey, this is what we're working on. Does this apply to you? Does the problem set that we're looking at apply to your organization? Is this something you could see valuable? Would you like to, get involved early? From a customer's perspective, right? What I think is a huge benefit to them with working with like an early stage company of our size is they get to sort of shape the direction of the product, right? And they can say, for our environment, if you did it like this, that would work really well. Well, obviously, we're going to prioritize doing that for them because they're one of a handful versus you're working with, a large company, thousands of people, thousands of customers. Your voice doesn't necessarily get heard in the same, at the same decibel level that it does when you're like talking to the CEO and the founding team on a regular basis, right?
hmm Okay, yeah, makes a ton of sense. And then let's switch over to the fundraising side. So it looks like you raised an 8.5 million seed round. Is that right? Is that capital raised to date?
Yeah, that's capital raised to date. That was split between a safe round and a seed round. So
Okay.
the safe round was 1.5 million with some very strategic investors, and then the seed round was actually led and followed by the institutionals that were part of the safe round, which was kind of the plan from the beginning. But
Okay. And was that the plan from the beginning to raise capital to fund this? And is it because so tell us a little bit about the fundraising journey, and was that part of the plan right from the start?
absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, we're definitely going to build a venture-backed company. That was planned from the start. And, the fundraising journey was actually a great experience. I think that for me, I really focused on kind of working with investors that I know and trust and have a good relationship with and feel like that they're partners in the journey, especially, I'll just go ahead and say it, first time CEO, not first time founder, but first time CEO. And so there's a lot of different things that I'm focused on right now that I haven't necessarily done in the past, but having a strong team from an investor side has been critical, right? As we kind of grow the business and, they're a great sounding board for me. So that was definitely a major consideration in the process.
And in the for a cybersecurity product, is this something that just because of the complexity of it that you really can't bootstrap? I mean, does a cybersecurity company really just need to raise funds just because it takes so much development?
I mean, I think it depends on what you're building,
Mm,
right? So there obviously have been some very successful bootstrapped cyber companies, right? But what often happens, and I'm speaking in kind of generalities here, but what often happens is it takes a really long time to get product to market and to really get traction. And it's to the point of like, what are you actually building? Like if you're, there's certain product categories that you could build something much quicker. Typically a lot of kind of services backed businesses you could build much quicker and kind of bootstrap because you have services revenue kind of helping drive and you only hire more people when you have more clients, right? So that kind of a business is a little bit easier to bootstrap. Um, but when you need to hire a team of engineers to actually build the product, that gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. So, I mean, unless you're doing really, really well, there's probably a lot of folks out there who could bootstrap a company, right? But I mean, you're talking about a major investment. So,
right. And you have a long history in technology and cybersecurity. So, and now as co-founder and CEO of Abstract. So In that fundraising round, any lessons learned that you'd like to pass on to other SaaS founders who may be in similar situations or maybe trying to raise for their cybersecurity firm?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, be careful. This isn't really an experience that I had this particular time, but I would say be careful because not all venture capitalists are your friend. And, just be careful how deep you go and how wide you go with what your idea is, because there's a lot of folks looking for good ideas and there's a lot of folks looking for where to put money right now. And so, that's I'm always paranoid, right? I mean, that's I don't know, that old expression, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you, right? So it's definitely in cyber, maybe that's what did it to me. I don't know. But I'm paranoid all the time about stuff, which is probably good. The other thing, and I think probably even more important, is, especially in the early days, right? In the, seed A, B type rounds, right? You're really looking for folks that have experience, with companies of that size and kind of the growing pains and the things you're going to run into that are challenges that you may not be expecting to be challenges. And just kind of having folks that have kind of been there and done that, that can say, look, hey, watch out for this. In 6 months, you're probably going to hit something like this. Or, hey, now's the time to start thinking about this, right? Even if it's things you probably take for granted, but you're doing so many things at once that sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I should have, why didn't I do that? Right. So having that kind of, I really like folks that have been operators at companies before to be involved, because that, they really have the background to say like, yeah, I was in your seat and this is what I did that worked well, or this is where I totally messed up. Right. You know, one of our early investors in the safe round with Tom Riley, right, who was the CEO of Arcsight, also the CEO of Cloudera. Prior to that, IBM, executive. And so he's, been a personal friend and an advisor for a long time. And, having him involved has been, really helpful, right? If I am running into things, I can send him a text. Although he moved to out of the country for a while, so a little harder to get a hold of him. But yeah, he's still available. So
I appreciate the insight. And I want to back up to one thing because I think SaaS founders, tech founders take some heat sometimes on social media when people, blast them for asking VCs to sign NDAs, right? And they're like, hey, VCs see tons of ideas. They don't care about your idea. They're not going to sign an NDA. But tell us, is there a case for being a little paranoid and maybe being a little bit secretive about your idea? Is there a case where that could be valid where, hey, a SaaS founder shouldn't take heat for maybe not disclosing everything about their IP?
yeah, I think it's got to be a relationship, right? You have to. I would suggest not going into the very first meeting and just completely opening, everything you've got, right? And saying, here's everything we're doing and here's all the secrets, right? I think figure out if there's a relationship there, figure out if there is a potential for a partnership and get comfort. I mean, VCs just don't ever sign NDAs, so I wouldn't even ask. I think that it would be very hard to enforce that, right? Because of the number of things they see, right? They're seeing pitches and being sent pitch decks all day long, right? So saying that it was your idea or somebody else's idea, I mean, who knows, right? But I do think that it is an area where you should be cautious as a founder. And, and again, I've had experiences, in fact, just recently had an experience where I was talking to a VC who is a major investor in a competitive company, right? And I guess they figured I wouldn't go look at their website and see like what their other portcos are. And I brought this up to the person. I said, hey, for me, this is a conflict. I don't know how you look at it. And the person said, oh, well, we can invest in whatever we want. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable that if I did partner with you, that you wouldn't go then invest in a competitor of mine. right? So, that's the kind of things that you just have to look out for. I think as a founder, we're trying to protect our team, right? I'm trying to protect our team and our business and, the livelihood of the folks that are working hard here at Abstract. And, I just have to be very careful, right?
Yeah.
And we all, do, I think, it's a, it's a busy, complicated market out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that insight. So some paranoia, like a little healthy paranoia. So
Yeah.
yeah. And Kobe, at this stage of your business, just over a year in, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to help guide the business?
Yeah. Revenue.
Yeah, that's very, very popular answer.
Yeah, yeah, that is my favorite metric. There's other things that I like to look at also. I like to look at, kind of engagement, number of inbounds, like on our website. That to me is a critical metric because ultimately inbounds convert to deals, which, you know, drives revenue back to the favorite metric. So I measure those quite a bit. On the product side, I mean, we definitely look at pull requests and, how much code's being written by who and, whatnot. In fact, we built some cool dashboards in our product that kind of show all the submissions of code to GitHub. So it's pretty neat to be able to see. So also we're trying to use our product internally, right? As we build it, which I think is important. But yeah, those are probably my favorite metrics. I mean, another one as we get older that obviously I'll keep a super close eye on is, customer retention and, net revenue retention and all of that. I think, to me, customer success is like the number one most critical part of the business. Like you can have a great engineering team, you can have a great product, you can have a fantastic sales team. But if the customers aren't ultimately happy with your product and using your product and getting value out of your product, then you're not doing something right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I'm tracking quite a few numbers, but still revenue top of the list right now. So Colby, really appreciate your time sharing your experience. And as we wrap up, what's coming up next for Abstract Security?
Well, we have some pretty exciting announcements coming out on some folks that have just joined the team. So that'll be in the next couple weeks. We'll be out at the Black Hat conference over the summer. That should be have some more announcements around that time. But at this point, it's we're GAing the product. We're out there in the market. It's build, 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 go, go, go. So a lot of exciting stuff coming out.
That's great. Well, yeah, looking forward to following the story. So, Colby, again, really appreciate your time sharing your experience and insights today. If listeners would like to learn more about abstract security, where should we send them online?
Abstract.security is the website. And yeah, there's a learn more dialogue box. If you sign up, I'll give you a call or send you an email or one of our team will. And happy to have a chat with anybody who's interested. And I mean, you could email me directly, Colby at abstract.security. I get lots of email. It's fine.
Yes, we all get a ton of email. But
Yeah.
all right, Colby, really appreciate your time sharing your experience. And if you'd like to learn more about what they're doing, check out abstract.security to learn more. And again, Colby, thanks for sharing your journey.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks.